You're listening to the DVM Podcast Empire.
Now with over 1 million downloads.
1 million downloads.
Find us online at dvmpe.com.
100% free.
1,000,000% fan.
And now,
Push the button.
Is it possible that we have permitted ideology, political and economic philosophies, and governmental policies to keep us from considering the very real, everyday problems of our people?
So what if my feelings are hurt? Does that give me the right to prevent others from expressing their opinions?
Wait a second, Doc! Are you telling me that this sucker is nuclear?
Hey, can you push the button?
Do not touch that button.
Hey, can you push the button?
Do not touch that button.
Hey, can you push the button?
Do not touch that button.
Mr. Anderson.
Don't push it.
Hey everybody, welcome back once again to Push the Button, your number one podcast for all things that get you hot. I am your host, David Mullen.
And I'm your other host, Mr. Anderson.
And this is the first time we've been in the recording since, almost...
Christmas?
Is it Christmas? Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
Probably, yeah. I think about Christmas time, right at the turn of the year.
It's been a long time.
Well, and what's neat is you and I have actually had a chance to reconnect in person since then.
Yes,
and
which was awesome.
We hung out. You were at an event in Indiana/Illinois type thing, and it was a really good time. I got to see you do your thing.
Got to go drink some good beer and have some good food.
And be heavily criticized by our listeners because of it.
What?
Yeah, I got into a huge Instagram war with one of your followers because they were accusing me of not being a very good Christian because I was taking a picture of drinking beers and stuff like that.
Wow, I didn't realize that's how that started.
Yeah, isn't that great?
Well, you know, David, you're just, the whole Christianity thing, you're just not doing it right.
I'm not doing it right, yes. Yeah. So there you go.
Pick one of the other 33,000 variations of Christianity in this country.
Yes, and I have been accused of being your yes man. See, and I have no problem saying all of this because the listener who claims that I am this person claims that they're no longer going to listen to the show. So,
well, shucks.
They're either not hearing me make fun of them or they're highly offended right now, in which case, either way, I win. So, just kidding. I'm not like that. But we got together. We had a great time. We had dinner together. We went to Three Floyds Brewery in Munster, Indiana. Phenomenal food, a great time. We hung out with a bunch of the wrestlers from the promotion, and it was just a great night, man. Great night.
It was, man. I really had a good time, and it's good to reconnect finally.
Yeah. Looking forward to another chance to do it again. If we don't get sick.
Yeah, if we don't get sick, man, because there's a lot of stuff going around.
There's those measles, that Ebola. If only the government could give us vaccinations. Oh, wait, they are trying all the time. In fact, they're doing it quite frequently. We had the polio vaccination in the 60s that everybody got, mandatory. If they went to public schools, I believe it was, they were administering them in public schools. And you can usually tell if somebody's over the age of 40 because they have that scar on their arm.
Sure. From
the polio vaccination. One of those things I've noticed growing up. There's a lot of heat right now, man. There's a lot of heat about whether or not vaccinations should be mandatory. There's a lot of alleged concern and conspiracy over the connection of vaccinations leading to autism. I don't want to say a lot, but there was some alleged connection that spawned a huge ripple throughout, at least America, with the likes of one entertainer, Jenny McCarthy, who famously spoke out very loudly about vaccinations and their connection to autism because her son, I believe, was diagnosed with autism. And so that spawned this giant division between people in America saying that you should or shouldn't get your kids vaccinated. And that's where we are today. There's the large debate. The question is that debate founded in fact, or is that debate founded in something that has since been rescinded? So, Ken, what do you know about vaccinations and everything going on?
Well, first of all, I'd like to just point out that in the science world, in the real world, correlation does not necessarily mean causation.
Okay.
So just because you happen to be standing on your head doing an Irish jig while you pulled the handle on a slot machine does not mean that the reason you won at said slot machine was because you were standing on your head doing the Irish jig, although I have no idea how you would perform that maneuver anyways. But
I still think alcohol would have to play a role.
Well, but
what happens
alcohol,
in Vegas stays in Vegas. That's all that matters.
But the alcohol would not necessarily be the reason that you won. It would be because of chance. So what I'm basically getting at
There's
is
a whole slew of sports athletes, professional athletes, who would disagree with you.
Yeah?
All the superstitious ones.
Well, right. They say baseball players are the most superstitious, right? And it's when they're at bat. If you watch a batter, they have what's a decent batting average is like 200.
Yeah, you're talking to the wrong guy. But
right,
but
two out of 10, and you've got a pretty decent average. If you hit 2 out of 10 balls, you have a decent a really good batting average.
Sure.
So they become very superstitious, and they do the same rituals over and over again.
And you can see it right on the TV, man. I mean, the same glove movements, where they place the bat, they touch their feet the same way, all that stuff.
Yep, everything exactly the same. And then you look at outfielders who have something like a 95% success rate, and they don't have any of those traits. They don't have any of those qualities. It's kind of funny.
That is weird.
But so basically, let's get into some of the diseases that were pretty much eliminated. And there's a difference between elimination and eradication. A disease is considered eliminated when it's removed from an area. So the United States, we've eliminated certain diseases. Polio, for one.
Right.
We've eliminated mumps, measles, rubella, pork tapeworm, meningitis, pertussis, so on and so forth.
The bubonic plague.
Bubonic plague. Now, there has only been one disease that has been considered eradicated, and eradicated just means on a global scale. So there's only been one disease that's ever been eradicated, and that is smallpox. And part of the big reason for that was because smallpox is not transmitted by any other animals other than humans. And so they were able to go around the world and basically corral people that had been infected with smallpox, give them the proper vaccinations and treatments and so forth, and slowly but surely we completely eradicated it.
Now, being a Chicagoan, living in this wonderful state of Illinois, it has been publicized highly within the last couple of weeks that there was an outbreak of the measles. Confirmed, the first confirmed case of the measles in Illinois. It was in the county of Cook, famously, and I believe, if I remember correctly, it was there was patients who were visiting a hospital in Arlington Heights. Basically, I think I heard the number was 5 children. These were children under the ages of, I think, 4. It was at a daycare center where 4 children were confirmed as being diagnosed with having the measles. Now, a lot of the anti-vaccination pundits are saying, well, it wouldn't have mattered if they were vaccinated or not because they were under the allowed age where the vaccinations would have happened. So this would have happened regardless, is the argument.
Well, but I believe that those, where did the disease stem from? We had completely eliminated it. Where did it come from? It came from the people who weren't vaccinated 10 years ago, 15 years ago when this nonsense started.
Okay. Well, and have we had any cases that we are familiar with where, let's just keep it in America, where Americans have measles? I'm only asking because I don't know. I don't know if you know or not either, but I'm not sure. Because I understand what you're saying. I don't know if we have information that says, somebody who's 15 years old
Right.
had measles, and that's how they got it. But if it's in the Midwest U.S., to me that's like interesting. That's all.
Yeah, I'm not intending to make a straw man argument here, which I'm possibly doing. I'm just
slow down, Jenny McCarthy.
That is my assumption, I guess, that since we had eliminated it completely, then it had to come from somewhere. I guess it being eliminated in the United States, we still have international travelers that could have come from overseas.
Well, and as we learned with the whole Ebola media crisis, I made sure to throw the media in there because obviously people are concerned that was the majority of the issue. But because of the Ebola media crisis, we did see that it is very possible for people to travel internationally and still carry things into the States.
Sure.
And, if measles not being the same as Ebola, I don't know what the symptoms are, but I would assume they're not as desperate and drastic as Ebola, so
right.
Goes a little more unnoticed.
Right. Absolutely.
So should the government mandate vaccinations? Where are we at with this? What's going on?
Well, if you won't mind, I'd like to back up just a little bit and talk about where this all stems from in the first place.
Bring it on.
So this MMR, measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine controversy was started in 1998 when a man by the name of Andrew Wakefield published a research paper in the Lancet. It's a medical journal that made spurious connections between colitis and autism and the MMR vaccine. Now, it was since discovered, after people around the world started halting their vaccinations because of this article, because it just gained such widespread popularity, and the media really helped this out and really got the information out there. And then you got celebrities such as Jenny McCarthy, who regularly hold public gatherings and spout this in my humble opinion,
keep it regulated.
Yeah, total nonsense. But basically, this guy was found to have completely fudged all of his data. He had financial interests, financial conflicts of interest.
Okay, like what?
He was going to get paid for
his research or whatever.
His research, and he was going to get into some litigation-based testing that would have stemmed from these allegations that the measles, mumps, and rubella vaccinations caused autism and colitis.
So pending cases would have been swayed one way or the other based on his evidence, and so he stood to probably financially benefit from that.
And so people tried to, and the test group, the sample group, was an extraordinarily small group of children that he tested. And it was found that he treated these he gave them colonoscopies and all kinds of other things. And he was charged on many counts, found guilty on all these counts. I want to say it was
so this guy was actually charged?
He was, and he was found guilty, and unfortunately he's not doing any time. But I
had no idea that had gone that far.
Yeah, and he's banned from practicing medicine. I mean, it was found out that he completely fabricated this document. This whole research paper was a complete fabrication. It was a hoax.
Wow. And
it was a hoax that he could benefit financially. And since then, we've had all kinds of reemergences of these cases of preventable diseases and deaths and suffering, et cetera. So he has been banned from practicing medicine in the UK. He now lives in the United States of America.
Great.
He does not hold a license to practice medicine.
He just works for the mob.
Yeah. However, he continues to maintain his innocence and maintain that he did not fudge any of the data, and that, in his opinion, these vaccinations still lead to autism, and he just continues to hammer it home.
Okay, so this wasn't an American court. This was a British court of law.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So
interesting.
So basically, you got people who read this and or were presented with this information and said, "Well, wait a second here. There's this giant controversy in the medical community, the pharmaceutical community. They're trying to poison us. They want us to be sick because if we're sick, they have to then we have to buy more medicine from them."
Sure, I can see that line of thinking.
I just like to point out that when we're dealing with conspiracy theories, and I used to be I would say I consider myself to be a conspiracy theorist at one point.
Sure.
Then I started thinking about it, and if two people commit a crime, the likelihood of one of those people singing about it to somebody is very high.
Okay.
These are two people that commit a crime. They murder somebody. And the evidence doesn't even necessarily need to point to them. There is a high probability that one of them will, at some point, feel the need to confide in somebody that they trust. And they'll say, "Hey, me and so-and-so killed a guy 10 years ago."
Right.
At which point, hopefully, if the person that they confided in is an honest citizen, he will then turn them in, and that's what usually happens. You're talking about such a vast conspiracy that requires millions upon millions upon millions of people to be involved in. It just, I'm sorry, but it just sounds like, as I said, two people commit a crime, nobody can keep their mouth shut. Suddenly you've got millions of people committing these crimes and participating in this conspiracy, and everybody remains silent. I don't buy it. That's my personal opinion.
Okay. No, and that's totally valid. I understand that completely. I think you're 100% wrong. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, do you?
No, not at all. Not at all. Okay. I will say this.
You're such a yes man.
Right, exactly. I will say this. You kind of know where I'm at because we talked about this off the air, but here's my biggest problem. I have good friends, people that I love and respect and care about, who are vehement against vaccinations, who are very vocal, especially in social media circles where they'll post 16 paragraphs worth of their opinions on being anti-vaccination. I've approached these friends and said, "Hey, I'm doing this episode on vaccinations. I'd love to have you come on and give me your opinion."
Yeah.
Every single one of them was busy.
Uh-huh.
I said, okay, well, that's fine. Ken and I couldn't do it this day. I said, well, we're going to do it again another day. We had another day set up, and they couldn't do that day either. And, of course, today I spent the whole day reaching out to these friends saying, okay, it's been almost a month since we advertised it. Are you able to get on and talk today? 3 different people, magically busy.
So why do you suppose that is?
Well, I'm not going to slander my friends. I'm not going to name them, but it's one of those things where I started to think, you're so ready to defend it, but you're just not able. You're just not able to do it when it comes time to really talk about it. And part of me thinks that maybe they're just afraid of, getting put into a situation where they can't defend themselves, or maybe they're afraid of you because you are so intimidating. But I mean, I can only assume it's that. It's not. I don't think that they don't believe this stuff. I think maybe they feel that they don't have enough ground to stand on to feel comfortable standing up for it themselves. To me, why post it on Facebook then? If you're not if you're not comfortable, I'll talk to anybody about what I believe, and even if I'm wrong, I'll be like, hey, I'm the first to admit maybe I don't know everything here, but to be like, this is what's happening, this is the problem, this is what's going on, and this is why I won't do this, and screw you, America type attitude. But when it comes time to have an open-minded discussion, it's just busy.
Nary to be found.
Yeah, and make of that what you will, audience. And
that's sort of my problem with all kinds of things.
Yeah, I know.
This idea that I'm fine if you want to have this discussion, if you want to tell me that I'm wrong, and okay, well, tell me why. Tell me why I'm wrong and why you're right. And I say, don't tell me that I'm wrong, and don't put me and my children at risk if you can't defend why it is that you're right. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's sort of the way I feel about it.
So here's the thing.
People need to be a little more educated and really need to do some research. And I find that a lot of people, and I've been guilty of this in the past too, a lot of people, when they get on something, when they start to believe something or something kind of seeps into their brain a little bit, they tend to only look at the information that supports what they already sort of suspect or feel, and they don't look at it from all angles, and that's what I feel like.
That is an absolute statement that we have come to on this show many times, as is we need more education.
Right.
It always boils down to the same thing. So when you and I discussed this when we were together in person, off air, the way I feel about it, because you asked.
How do you feel about it, David?
Thanks, Ken. I haven't seen any real science that connects vaccinations to direct linking of causing something like autism or even colitis or whatever that is. I mean, I know what colitis is, but I never heard that it was a connection of that as well. I just heard the autism thing. I did know a family. They were more of a business acquaintance a handful of years ago, but I did know a family whose daughter was severely handicapped, and they blamed it on improper vaccination. There was a lawsuit. There was, from what I understand, they won the lawsuit because there was found to be negligence or whatever. I don't know if that has anything to do with this specifically, or just the fact that there was medical negligence, or just, a mistake was made during the administration or whatever. Mm-hmm. But that was kind of my first radar honing in on that as even being something, any connection to people having concerns with vaccinations, improper vaccinations with their children. So I had heard that, and then ironically, I want to say, I think Jenny McCarthy came out on a WWE event, and I think that's where I had heard about it. I kid you not. I want to say, I think it was maybe like WWE SmackDown or something, but she came out and like talked to the audience about vaccinations and stuff like that. I'm about 95% certain. I'm sure we've got wrestling fans who are listening, so please hook me up with that information, because I would really love to remember that.
That was where she originally broke that she was in that.
It was, yeah, I'm pretty sure it was before your time there.
Huh.
Maybe. I'm pretty sure. Pretty sure. I'll have to look it up. I'll definitely have to look it up. Please don't take my word for it. For some reason, I have her in my head coming out on a WWE stage talking about.
My word for it.
Yeah. Thanks, Lamar. So, yeah. So that was kind of, I was like, okay, well, and I was a dumb teenager at that point, so I didn't, I certainly didn't research.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of went, oh, yeah, sure, okay, well, I've heard all these things, I saw somebody in my own life with complaint about vaccinations, bad. Jenny McCarthy's on my TV where I'm watching wrestling saying vaccinations are bad. And, then I have, my own share of conspiracy theorists. And I'll be the first to admit that I certainly do succumb to some conspiracy theories. Not all of them, but I've certainly gone through some of them, and we'll definitely talk about them in other episodes. That's another podcast. But I will say I still have, and I'm willing to admit that it's all based on perception of social perception. I have not done any work, so I won't give it a definitive answer because I'm just as guilty. But for the longest time, until I really had to start thinking about it when we talked about doing this episode, I had always been leery of, like, say, the flu shot and all these other things because I didn't understand. I didn't feel comfortable with Uncle Sam telling me, you're going to get this, you need this, make sure you get this. If you're not getting this, and I started to feel like I'm being not ostracized, but singled out if I don't.
Yeah.
And, I've lived pretty securely and safely being taught not to just, jump off a cliff because my friends are doing it.
Yeah.
But admittedly, it's my responsibility to educate myself, and I did not. But to this day, I can say I've never had a flu shot.
I never have either. Never.
Now, what little information I have on the flu shot is everyone I know who does have it still gets the frickin' flu. So to me, I can't justify doing it.
Well, right. And from what I understand, so I rarely get the flu. I mean, I can't remember the last time I got the flu. Knock on wood.
Yeah, but you're totally going to get it now, man. Why would you say that?
Actually, I take that back. I just had like a tinge of it, like a 24-hour bug last week. So maybe I'm good for a while.
Gonna knock on some wood.
But
you just knocked on wood?
Before I knocked on my forehead.
I'm sorry. I just find that hilarious that you, Ken Anderson, just did a superstitious thing. I love it.
Knocking on my forehead.
All right, go ahead.
So, but what I understand is that you're not necessarily, your immune system might be very high and you may not get the flu, but you are preventing or helping other people around you who don't have the same immune system that you do.
See, and I never even took that line of thinking until today.
You can be a carrier of it, and you can transmit it. You won't necessarily feel the effects from it, sort of thing.
No, I never even considered that until you brought that up today.
And in certain situations, the strain of the flu, a lot of times you're getting the bird flu virus or that. You're not necessarily getting the influenza.
Yeah, the information I have gained from the years of the flu shot's existence is that the problems that seem to have been is that they keep trying to guess what strain is going to be the most active, and they keep getting it wrong.
Right, because it just mutates constantly.
Right.
It's constantly mutating and changing, so those flu shots are only good for so long.
But see, then there's the whole thing of, and I hate to admit this because I know how ridiculous I'm going to sound, and you're going to eat me alive, but you can. That's what this show's all about.
It's just me eating you alive because, that's apparently what I do.
That's all you do. I just say yes. But I won't lie. There's that little small voice in the back of my head every time I pull into a CVS or a Walgreens and I see get your flu shot. Did you get your flu shot? Hey, Dave, did you get your flu shot? It's like, why do you want me to have it so bad? What's in there? What's in there that you want everyone in the world? It's free, man. We'll give it to you free.
It's medicine. That's why they want you to have it, so people don't get sick.
I know.
I feel the same way, and I feel the same way, and I feel that way because it's been hammered into our brains that there's this vast conspiracy that involves the pharmaceutical companies and the big government.
There's little GPS nanotechnology that they're putting into you or something.
Yes.
I have no idea.
It's Alex Jones.
It's nanotechnology, man. That's what they're putting in their syringes that they're putting into your bodies. So the mothership can control you and control your bodies.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, and that's the thing about conspiracy theories, though, bro. That's the thing, because on the surface you're like, that's bullshit. But then, there's that tiny voice in the back of your head that goes, yeah, but what if, man? What if? And that's I'm so used to saying no to the flu shot that when I have to think about it, I'm not sure why. But see, that's the thing. So with vaccinations, and so, I had a friend who was, he was very Alex Jones-ish. And he's probably going to be listening to this right now, so I'm trying not to be offensive because I love this guy like a brother.
Does he have a gravelly voice?
No. He sounds like he's from Minnesota. No, it's they had just had a child within the last year or two, and he had posted video of how the hospital was really, really sticking it to him to have the vaccinations, and how they were threatening, potential action if he didn't. And so he was taking it more of a political, civil unrest type stance, posturing. But I remember watching these videos that he gladly posted on Facebook about, nurses and doctors coming in, and there was like the whole legal ramifications of what they could and couldn't do, and what they could and couldn't suggest, and could they take his children away, or all this ridiculous stuff. And, it's one of those things where it's like, why does it even have to get to this point? And we get into the whole part that I really want to talk about, which is it really the government's place to do this? Because I think where I can somewhat sympathize with anti-vaccination supporters, it's not so much for the health aspect as so much as it is I'm one of those guys who likes small government. I don't like the idea of being told that you must do this and the government is forcing you to do this, and I don't necessarily think that we need to have legislation that would force citizens to have to accept this stuff, or at least force doctors to administer things that maybe a family doesn't necessarily want. I agree, education needs to be had, and it's the responsibility of the new parents to learn and know what's important and learn that they need to protect their children. And I want to make this very clear, and I'm pretty sure you were in the same boat with me. Regardless of how I feel about vaccinations, my children are vaccinated. They were vaccinated right away when they're up to date with all their vaccinations. So are my pets. So
yeah.
So as much as I have that small voice in the back of my head that protests, I still fell in line because it's my babies, man. I don't want anything bad to happen to them.
And the preponderance of evidence, the medical and scientific evidence, demonstrates that the pros, which is the prevention of suffering and death from infectious disease, far outweigh the cons, which are rare adverse effects from taking these.
And that's exactly where you and I kind of agreed when we talked about this off air a couple of weeks ago, which is, in my humble opinion, if the pros far outweigh the negatives, then I would think what would be a better scenario, as opposed to trying to find the connection between vaccinations and autism per se, is spend more time on trying to make the vaccinations as close to 100% as possible, while still saving everyone else's life in the meantime. So instead of fighting it, make it more of an education where people understand, hey, look, you know what? Yes, there might be that 0.1% that there is a problem, that there is, 0.1% of children with vaccinations could develop this stuff, and it might be a connection to a vaccination, even though we have no real evidence yet. Then I would say you're still better off vaccinating your children and then spend the money, time, research, effort, science on taking care of that 0.01% that needs it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. But I think that the medical scientific community does that already. I think they're constantly trying to,
and they very well probably
manipulate these vaccinations to make sure that they're as safe as possible.
Yeah.
And removing any harmful things from them. They're constantly testing and retesting to me it's, if you have, we'll say 0.1, right? 0.1% chance that something bad happens to you when you get this vaccination or these vaccinations, which I I'm going to go out on a limb here. I don't have the hard data in front of me, but I would say that the number's probably even less than that. It's probably less than 0.1%.
Sure.
But let's say for argument's sake, 0.1%, but you have an even 10% or a 5% chance that you'll get one of these preventable, horrible diseases that could kill you. Wouldn't you rather go with a 0.1%?
Well, and that's my point.
That's like to me, it's like not wearing a seatbelt because you've heard about those rare cases where somebody was saved by actually not wearing their seatbelt when they were involved in a horrible crash. You know, like
right.
Somebody was, this time they just happened to not be wearing their seatbelt. They were thrown from the vehicle into a pile of hay. Had they been wearing their seatbelt, they would have been killed instantly. You hear about those rare cases, and that's like, I don't have the hard data.
Right.
I don't have the hard data in front of me, but the amount of lives that seatbelts have saved is astronomical compared to the very few that have been saved by not wearing their seatbelts. That's just a fact.
And, and unfortunately, I agree with you. So, once again, I'm your yes man. And for everybody who doesn't like that I'm his yes man on this particular topic, it's your own fault for not reaching out. Because I 3 different people who vehemently oppose vaccinations, all of them were unavailable for this conversation. And unfortunately, I don't know enough, so I can't put my foot down on one flag or the other than what I've just said. So, the possible risks that come with vaccinations, in my personal opinion, uneducated, albeit, they don't outweigh the medical safety. They just don't. And so I'm glad that my children are vaccinated. I will, just to play devil's advocate and throw a wrench in the machine, I will say this. Both of my children have been vaccinated. Both of them have been diagnosed separately, different years, issues. I mean, I have a 17-year-old and a 9-year-old. Both of them have been diagnosed with forms of ADD. And the one of them is definitely on the autism spectrum.
Uh-huh.
So there's that. Right. Now, I never once for a second thought, it's because of the vaccinations they had when they were children.
Right, because there are just so many variables,
yes.
right?
Yes.
Like, how do you
But there's going to be that listener.
What's that?
But there's going to be that listener, Ken, who goes, see, there you go. There it is.
Exactly. Correlation equals causation. No, it doesn't. Right. Just because you had vaccinations and you got autism does not mean that the two are related to each other.
Now, and I'm going to have to try to look this up while we're talking, so forgive the delay. But my mother, I mentioned to her that we were going to be doing this topic, and I had no idea. I don't know if she's necessarily anti-vaccinations, but I'm pulling it up right now. But I believe she had some contention about when I was a child, because I mentioned it to her, and she said, "Oh yeah, well, when you were a baby, and I guess something happened when I was a baby." But mind you, this was in the 70s.
Sure.
So,
well,
I'll try to find what she said.
As you're looking that up, it's funny you should say that, because I do have a letter that I'd like to sort of read.
Perfect.
And it totally ties in. So this, I found this on voicesforvaccines.org, and this is an article. I don't know what her name is, but the article is called "Growing Up Unvaccinated." And she starts out by saying, "I am the 70s child of a health nut. I wasn't vaccinated. I was brought up on an incredibly healthy diet, no sugar till I was 1, breastfed for over a year, organic homegrown vegetables, raw milk, no MSG, no additives, no aspartame. My mother used homeopathy, aromatherapy, osteopathy. We took daily supplements of vitamin C, echinacea, cod liver oil. I had an outdoor lifestyle. I grew up next to a farm, walked everywhere, did sports, danced twice a week, drank plenty of water. I wasn't even allowed pop. Even my fresh juice was watered down to protect my teeth, and I would have killed for white bread in my lunchbox once in a while. And biscuits, this woman is from the UK, so cookies instead of fruit like all the other kids. We only ate organic, local meat maybe once or twice a week, and my mother and father cooked everything from scratch. I have yet to taste finest crispy pancake and oven chips were reserved for those nights when mom and dad had friends over and we got a treat. As healthy as my lifestyle seemed, I contracted measles, mumps, rubella, a type of viral meningitis, scarlatina, whooping cough, yearly tonsillitis, and chickenpox, some of which are vaccine preventable. In my 20s, I got precancerous HPV and spent 6 months of my life wondering how that I was going to tell my 2 children under the age of 7 that mummy might have cancer before it was safely removed. So having this natural immunity sterilized out of us just doesn't cut it for me. How could I, with my idyllic childhood and my amazing health food, get so freaking ill all the time? My mother was the biggest health freak around. She would put most of my current crunchy friends to shame. She didn't drink, she didn't smoke, she didn't do drugs, and we certainly weren't allowed to watch whatever we wanted on the television or wear plastic shoes or any of that stuff. She lived alternative health. And you know what? I'm glad that she gave us the great diet that we had. I'm glad that she cared about us in that way. But it just didn't stop me from getting childhood illnesses.
Right.
My 2 vaccinated children, on the other hand, have rarely been ill, have had antibiotics maybe twice in their lives, if that, not like me, who got so many illnesses which needed treatment with antibiotics that I developed a resistance to them, which led me to be hospitalized with penicillin-resistant quinsy at 21. You know, that old-fashioned disease that killed Queen Elizabeth I and which was almost wiped out through the use of antibiotics. My kids have had no childhood illnesses other than chickenpox, which they both contracted while still breastfeeding. They, too, grew up on a healthy diet, homegrown organics, etc. Not to the same extent that I did, though as I was not quite as strict as my mother, but they are both healthier than I have ever been. I find myself wondering about the claim that complications from childhood illnesses are extremely rare, but that vaccine injuries are rampant. If this is the case, I struggle to understand why I know far more people who have experienced complications from preventable childhood illnesses than I have ever met with complications from vaccines. I have friends who became deaf from measles. I have a partially sighted friend who contracted rubella in the womb. My ex got pneumonia from chickenpox. A friend's brother died from meningitis. I understand to a point where the anti-vaccine parents are coming from. Back in the 90s, when I was concerned, frightened by the world as I was bringing my child into, I was studying homeopathy, herbalism, aromatherapy. I believed in angels, witchcraft, clairvoyance, crop circles, aliens at Nazca, giant ginger mariners spreading their knowledge to the Aztecs, the Incas, and the Egyptians, and that I was somehow personally blessed by the Holy Spirit with healing abilities. I was having my aura read at a hefty price and filtering the fluoride out of my water. I was choosing to have past life regressions instead of taking antidepressants. I was taking my daily advice from tarot cards. I grew all my own vegetables, made all my own herbal remedies. I was so freaking crunchy that I literally crumbled. It was only when I took control of those paranoid thoughts and fears about the world around me and became an objective, critical thinker that I got well. It was when I stopped taking sugar pills for everything and started seeing medical professionals that I began to thrive physically and mentally.
Wow. That really hits you, man.
And obviously that's just one woman's take on things. Sorry for the lengthy...
No, I love it. I love it.
Yeah. But I thought it was appropriate for the situation, and it's an interesting take.
That's very good. Very good. Now, I did pull up the thing my mom had talked to me about. When I mentioned to her that we were doing this episode, without any warning, she sent me this message saying, "This is the vaccine that put you into grand mal seizures and a high fever when you were a young child. It was called the DPT." And it was the DPT vaccine has been linked to brain damage, neurological damage, sudden infant death syndrome, and death. By linked, and mind you, I'm reading an article here. I'm not giving you science. I don't know if it's science. But the DPT vaccination is what I had when I was a child, and apparently alleged what caused my seizures when I was a baby or young child, or however old I was. Clearly, I need to call my mom and find out what happened. But, yeah.
Huh.
So, if my mom is listening, I will say I'm not making fun of you or anything. I need to, I need to take time and actually look at that, because I don't know. Very interesting stuff.
Yeah. One more thing that I wanted to touch on, if that's cool.
Please do.
About this whole vaccination thing is, a lot of the anti-vaxxers will claim that there are all these harmful chemicals, right? You've got all these harmful chemicals that are in the vaccinations.
Okay.
So,
as they smoke cigarettes. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, exactly.
It's probably more true than that.
So, according to the World Health Organization,
that darn World Health Organization,
the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, chemicals commonly used in the production of vaccines include a suspending fluid, sterile water, saline, or fluids containing protein, preservatives, and stabilizers. For example, albumin, phenols, and glycine, and adjuvants or enhancers that help improve the vaccine's effectiveness. So, what you should know about this, there are millions of doses of vaccines administered to children in this country every year. Ensuring that those vaccines are potent, sterile, and safe requires the addition of minute amounts of chemical additives, just like your food. Chemicals are added to vaccines to inactivate a virus or bacteria and stabilize the vaccine, helping to preserve the vaccine and prevent it from losing its potency over time. Some of these vaccinations without these small trace amounts of these chemicals would cease to be effective after a few weeks, potentially, depending on the vaccination. The amount of chemical additives is extremely small, and all routinely recommended pediatric vaccines manufactured for U.S. market are available in formulations that contain no thimerosal or only trace amounts.
Sure.
So some of the things that people complain about are aluminum, formaldehyde, and I'm not sure how you pronounce this. I'm probably going to butcher this. Thimerosal, which is a mercury-containing preservative. So, again, these aluminum, for instance, is added to help the vaccine stimulate a better response, and it promotes an earlier, more potent response and more persistent immune response to the vaccine. The formaldehyde is used to inactivate bacterial products for these vaccines. It's also used to kill unwanted viruses and bacteria that might contaminate the vaccine during production. Most formaldehyde is actually removed from the vaccine before it's packaged. And the thimerosal is a mercury-containing preservative that's added to vials of vaccine that contain more than one dose. So, there are situations where a vial will contain, say, 10 milliliters of fluid.
Right.
And only 1 milliliter of that fluid is needed per shot, and they'll reuse that bottle
9 more times.
Right, exactly. So it's added in those situations to prevent contamination and the growth of potentially harmful bacteria. Now, again, these are such small trace amounts. Look, yes, in large quantities, and even what we consider to be small quantities, these ingredients are very harmful to the human body. But you got to realize that water, if you drink too much water, you will die.
Right.
It's a fact. So there's just about everything in the right amount, the right dose will kill you. So...
Is that to say, on the flip side, then anything in the correct moderation won't kill you? Like, can you get just a drop of anthrax and be okay, or?
I don't know. I'm sure that you can get a certain amount of anthrax and be fine.
Oh, that's what I mean.
If you take, I don't know what the actual amount is, but yeah, I'm sure that there is a small enough amount that it will be you'll be unaffected by it. Again, I believe that the overwhelming scientific and medical evidence says that these chemicals aren't harmful to human beings. They're not harmful, at least in their current
the dosage levels that they're at.
Right, exactly. And they're actually helpful, and you're putting yourself at more risk by not ingesting these chemicals or not allowing them to be in your vaccinations.
Well, I'll be honest and say that just this conversation has definitely made me really try to think logically about the whole thing and how kind of ridiculous it would be for me or anyone to just assume that, the government is going to somehow try to utilize the standardization of vaccinations to administer some ulterior motivated thing. So maybe I'll get a flu shot this year. But so help me. If I find a radioactive, GPS tracker, I'm coming for you.
Maybe they'll have one of those radioactive spiders in there and you'll get bit by it on the inside.
And then I could be
superpowers? Yeah. But so we never answered your question about should the government be involved with this.
See, now, and that's the thing. I still...
In what degree, if they are?
I think that, what they have right now, I think is fair. I think it's, they willingly offer it to anybody who wants to do it. Maybe the government needs to understand that there is a very large, it's not a very small amount, there's a very large amount of Americans who aren't educated enough on this. So maybe they should spend a little more resources on educating a little better, getting the information out to, I don't know. I mean, when you're speaking as a man, when your wife is pregnant, you have options. You can have education. I went through so many different educational programs. Whether it's, we didn't do a Lamaze class, but we did like a birthing class, and we did a, kind of a, how to learn how to change a frickin' diaper class.
Yeah, right.
Stuff like that. So
we did all that.
Yeah. So
breastfeeding class.
Yeah, that was my favorite. There needs to be a vaccination class where they talk about, hey, yes, some people do feel this, but here's where they're being misled, or here's where they need more education, or here is the education that you need. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I never had a vaccination class. I would have liked one. So instead of wasting millions of taxpayers' dollars on drafting a bill that might make it a mandatory legislative thing where there is no freedom, make it spend a fraction of that money on educating the American people so that they can have a clear understanding. I don't drink paint. I don't need a law telling me I can't drink paint.
Right, but you drinking paint doesn't affect other people around you. And that's where I sort of...
Okay.
That's where I'm sort of on the fence about this. And you know me, I am a small government guy. I don't like government. I don't like government telling me what to do. But where I'm sort of on the fence is when you choose to not take these vaccinations and you contract one of these diseases unknowingly, possibly,
yeah.
And then you're walking around the stores with other people. I don't know. Well, I guess when you're walking around the stores, if everybody else is vaccinated, then...
Well, yes, but no, I think you have a really good point. You do, because, and like I said, I wasn't thinking from that standpoint until today. Before that, I had told you my position on that, which is I don't think the government should legislate that. But I wasn't thinking of it as being a carrier, and you can be the cause of other people's death.
Right.
And so, yeah, that does change the perspective. It does tilt the lens a little bit in a different direction. So now I'm looking at it differently. Because I don't want to be, I personally don't want to be the causation of someone else's death. I don't.
I don't either.
I just like
unless they have black hoods over their faces and are beheading people over their faces.
Then they made a choice.
Then I would love to be the cause of their death.
Okay, so an off-the-wall example, but you'll see how I drive it home, is the actor Michael Massey, who played one of the characters in the film The Crow with Brandon Lee.
Right.
He's an actor. He's been acting for years. Very, very good actor, actually, at that. He held a gun, pointed it at Brandon as was directed, fired the gun. What was supposed to be a blank was a real projectile.
Well, it was a blank, I thought, but when you fire a blank, stuff still comes out the end of the barrel, and I thought it was...
Okay, maybe it wasn't packed properly or whatever, but... The simple fact of the matter is Michael Massey, the actor, did not load a gun with a weapon with the intent to kill this poor actor.
Yeah.
Yet, he did...
Sorry, I didn't mean to be pedantic.
No, it's fine. You bastard. No, I'm just kidding. But the point is that, it ruined his life. Obviously it ruined Brandon's life, but Michael Massey, who obviously he's innocent, obviously, but he's carrying that now for the rest of his life, to the point where you can't talk to him about it. I've seen journalists try to bring it up with him since then. He's like, nope, he will not talk about it. It practically ruined him as well. It's such a destructive thing. I totally sympathize with the concept of this poor guy did not have the intention to hurt anybody. Yet it happened nonetheless by his hand. So if someone had been able to reach him and say, hey, there is a 99% chance that if this weapon fires improperly or whatever, Brandon's going to die, I'm sure he would second guess the decision, or he'd want more information, or he'd say, can we really make sure this is safe? Anything.
I'm sure if they told him it was a 1% chance that he was going to die, he'd probably...
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. There's the old joke about condoms. They're 99% effective. So wait, what? So there's still 1% of a chance?
Right.
From what I understand, so
because of that, I'm just not going to wear them.
It's pretty small, so... So anyway,
I know somebody who wore a condom and still got a girl pregnant, so I'm just not going to wear condoms. That's the same
point.
That's the same mentality.
That is literally the point. And that's just dumb. And that's just it. If I can sit here and go, well, that's just dumb, so matter of factly, and that's because I have enough information that says, okay, well, for the ridiculous amount of chance that. You know what? If somebody wears a condom and still there's a baby and it's an unwanted child and they give birth to the child, then the government can help raise it. I'm okay with that. Right. But for the most part, we should be protecting each other. And you're right. If somebody has, damn it, I'm a yes man. But you're right. If somebody has potential to be a carrier and they have the ability to stop it and they have been educated with the tools necessary, then yes, I can see where actively ignoring it is harmful to others. Then yes, I can understand the desire of a government to be able to punish somebody like that.
Now, I don't think that Jenny McCarthy is intentionally causing harm to society. I think she really has the best intentions.
The education isn't widespread yet. It's just...
And that's what it is. It just boils down to ignorance. She's ignorant, and at some point... And ignorance is not stupidity, it's just a lack of information. The way that you cure ignorance is through education, right? However, at some point you have to start thinking about willful ignorance. And I'm
not wanting to look at the information, not wanting to knowledge.
Right. This information came out in 1998, this journal, this fraudulent paper. So it's been 17 years now. At some point, with all the information out there, all the just piles and piles of medical data, scientific data, and you refuse to look at it, you refuse to even question what you're selling, I have to call willful ignorance. And to me, willful ignorance is stupid. It's stupidity. So, yeah.
I'm gonna just briefly talk about something that I see here, and just because I find it very fitting to the conversation we're having. It's on a website called whyichoose.org, vaccine safety, and just one section here. It just says, "Are vaccines safe?" And the response is yes, vaccines are safe. Millions of children and adults are vaccinated every year. However, any medicine can cause reactions in some people. The most common side effects are swelling or tenderness at the injection site and fever. Serious reactions are very rare, happening in 1 to 2 people out of 1 million shots given. So that is that's 0.00001 or 0.00002 or whatever. Thousands of people take part in clinical trials to test a vaccine before it is licensed by the Food and Drug Administration. So right off the bat, you figure, animal rights people are down with this because it's tested on humans first. After it's licensed, the Vaccine Adverse Events Reporting System, VAERS, helps track any health effect that happens hours, days, weeks, or even months later. Anyone can report a possible side effect so that it can be studied. This monitoring helps ensure vaccines are safe. And to learn more about vaccine safety from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, visit the CDC vaccine safety page on their website. So right there, just the 10 seconds of time that it took me to go out and gather information, I was just given the answer to the question that we raised as to the, how many people really have complications, how rare those complications actually are, and the fact that those complications themselves are actively being studied for that purpose. So you said 1 out of every million, right? It says 1 to 2 people out of 1 million shots given. So you've got, there are 317 million people in America. Okay. So you're looking at 317 to 632 people across the entire country. Across the entire country that see adverse effects from getting these shots. There was a case, you can look this up online, there's a case of I believe she was a cheerleader for the Baltimore Ravens. Okay. Beautiful girl, young girl, in her 20s, promising career ahead of her. She got a flu shot, and she has a condition now that resembles like cerebral palsy. Okay. Where she can't control her motor skills. For some weird reason, when she walks backwards, she can do everything just fine. I remember her story. If she runs, when she's standing still or sitting down, she can barely speak. It's really hard to understand her. I'm not laughing at her. I remember the news report. Yeah. If she runs, she goes from not being able to control her speech to having a normal conversation. It's the weirdest thing. Look it up. I got it right here. She was actually with the Washington Redskins. Okay. And she was 25. Her name, what's her name here? Desiree Jennings. Yeah. She was a vibrant 25-year-old Washington Redskins cheerleader ambassador. And basically she had a flu shot in 2009 that disabled her. And what I'm saying is that's a possibility. It's always a possibility, There's certain people are allergic to peanuts. But if it happened to a cheerleader, it's going to happen to me. Don't even get me started on the peanut allergy thing, man. Or gluten. Let's talk about gluten. That's a topic for another podcast. Yeah. All right. Well, I think, here we go. Once again, we're trying to get pissed off and we can't because we pretty much fall on the same side here. No, you did. You definitely pulled me towards your side on this one because I was not thinking about it as you're posing harm to others by willfully not doing it. And if anybody out there has the knockdown, drag out argument, please counter us. Please send it in. You can email us at pushthebuttonpodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Twitter at pushbuttonpod. And you can always listen to our stuff on dvmpe.com. All right, Ken. Well, I'll tell you what, man. I'm starting to feel a little bit lightheaded. Maybe I need to go to a doctor. What do you think?
I think so. I think, well, are you feeling fever at all? Some shakiness?
Yeah, well, I'm going to take a temperature, but I have a feeling that I'm getting warm.
Are you pissing out of your ass?
Not yet.
Okay, well.
If that was happening, we would have problems.
We might have problems. We might. Just give you something to bind that up for you. Some Metamucil or something like that. Anyway.
Nice block of cheese, something.
Something. Yeah, some Tums. Some Rolaids. Some Imodium AD.
Hey, that stuff is awesome. That stuff works great.
Anyhow, I personally, you know what, folks, in my humble opinion, get your kids vaccinated. Get yourself vaccinated if you're not already.
Spay and neuter your pets.
Spay and neuter your pets. Boy, I wish I had like a long, skinny microphone right now. I feel so much better. What was the deal with that microphone that Bob Barker always had, huh?
It was a phallic symbol.
That was weird.
It was totally a misogynist thing.
Totally. He always flirted with those ladies.
Yeah, he got busted a few times, too.
Bikini models.
Yeah.
Just like, what was the guy on Family Feud? Richard Dawson?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I loved me some Richard Dawson. But he didn't discriminate against anybody. You could have been an old lady, he'd have flirted with you.
Oh, yeah. And flirt he did. But,
yes, he did.
Yeah. But here's the thing. Again, the data, the medical, scientific data out there is overwhelming that, yes, there is a slight possibility that something bad will happen to you if you get injected with anything. But the preponderance of evidence that suggests that these things are good for you and will lead to the prevention of these diseases that will kill you or cause great suffering is pretty vast and great. So, yeah.
Which controversial issue that pushes people's buttons do you suppose has the most overwhelming evidence? Evolution, climate change, or vaccinations?
Ooh. Boy, I don't know. That's kind of a toss-up.
Yeah.
Well, I think most people... Well, again, it all comes down to education, right? Education.
I've heard the same statement. You know, with evolution, there's overwhelming amount of evidence. With climate change, there's overwhelming amount of evidence. With vaccination, you just said, there's an overwhelming amount of evidence. So, I'm just curious, which has the most? Meaning, which one of those three would have the least amount of evidence in their overwhelming amount?
I don't know. I was
something to chew on.
Yeah, that's something to chew on. That's an interesting...
It's a completely useless question, really. All right, everybody. Well, thanks for tuning in to Push the Button. We know we've been gone. We're glad to be back, and we're going to get back to you with another one shortly. I am David Vox Mullen.
And I'm Mr. Anderson.
Thanking you for listening, and remember...
Don't get hot.
Mr. Anderson.
Don't push it.